let's just crack on with the AI panel. Let's get into it. Please welcome back on stage Matt and Scott. So I think, if we saw anything from those two talks, it's that, this is clearly an exciting technology for white English-speaking men. So your time has finally come. First of all, on the terminology, do we have to call it AI?
What would you rather call it?
Well, machine learning, generative tool, something more accurate. AI is such a, AI covers everything from, general artificial intelligence to some if-else statements. I know the marketing department loves it, but clarity.
It's an artifice, though, isn't it? Ultimately, it's not human.
Sure, artificial, but it's not intelligent, and it's maybe damaging to imply it is.
Okay, so we're worried about the intelligence word. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've always hated the fact that it's called AI because it's like, is it intelligence? Do we even know what that is in this context? So yeah, I would call it something else. I could call it machine learning actually. But.
Good, because clarity is good. In fact, a real connection between both your talks was that the skill, it seemed to me, is in not just I've got an idea. It's in being able to express what you want with clarity. Mm-hmm. That's why I find it so ironic that we're using the term AI, which is the least clear term to describe this. So do you think that's the skill, is describing what you want in a clear manner?
I think so, yeah, at least in current versions of the tools as we've got them. But Scott was talking about where it goes next, but I'll hold that thought. I think it is, and all of the conversations that I've had have been in the same vein, which is, and Scott said it as well, that the more context you give it, the more, there's a good way of summing it up, which is talk to it like it's 8, talk to it like you talk to your 8-year-old, be clear about what you want it to do, why you want it to do it, and how you want it to do those things, and what the expected outcome is of that task or program,
So the whole time you feel like you've been training the AI, it's really been training you to communicate in a certain way.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely the thing that I've found with it is it's after learning with it and getting used to it, I've worked out its quirks and how it works and what it expects. What happens if you give it a crap prompt and it gets it really wrong and okay, and it has been training me to just understand how to get the best out of it. Yeah.
I want to go big picture for a second here and talk about your motivations. I think in both your talks, you both used the word inevitable to describe this technology, what's happening, which I gives me some creepy feelings. I feel a lack of agency when there's this kind of technological determinism that this is going to happen, whether you like it or not, whether you asked for it or not, and you better get on board. I feel like both of you were aiming for the carrot of excitement, but there's definitely a hint of the stick of fear. What do you feel? Fear, and that's your motivation, or do you feel excitement? Are they two sides of the same coin?
You got me on a good day.
You wake up some days it's fear.
Yeah, and there was another talk, which Andy was at as well, actually down in London recently, where it was in a different vein, and it was more about the alignment issue, and the problem with that is that there's not enough alignment and there's too much.
What do you mean by alignment?
Alignment is the guardrails, if you like. It's making sure that the machine is trained and responsive in a good way, not bad ways, not ways that are going to, I don't know, put the recipes for dirty bombs in people's hands, or mass destruction, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that actually reminds me of the stuff that we're talking about before with open source, language models, a company like OpenAI can add controls in there and stuff, but once other people can figure all this sort of stuff out, which is becoming pretty widespread knowledge, there's no protections anymore. So who's to say someone couldn't just make a language model that is optimized for creating nuclear weapons or something? I
think we should be clear about what that is, and that is. It was, I think it was last week, or was it the week before? There was a leaked letter from a Google engineer that the summary of which was we have no moat, and it was an email about OpenAI and Google, them having no moat because large language models are now in the hands of everyone to develop and build on top of. Develop is the wrong word. We grow them, actually. They're more like, because they're neural networks, they're based on the human brain. But anyway, point being that these large language models are now in the hand of anyone to build on. So your garden shed devs have the keys to the kingdom, if you like,
And
on a mass scale.
to muddy things a bit further, despite the name, OpenAI is not.
Yeah,
Not,
it's closed
no, it's
AI.
a commercial
Very
operation.
closed,
Yeah,
yeah.
very closed. We don't know an awful lot of stuff about it.
But in terms of the inevitability factor, like if you pretty much both decided, like it is inevitable, because I've heard that before. I mean, people were saying crypto bollocks was inevitable a few years ago, and now I've seen all my spam change from being crypto bollocks spam to being, AI spam. Is it another hype cycle?
Yeah, I mean, all the crypto bros are just like, yep, straight over, like all the NFTs, So I'm definitely scared of like the spam and the scamming and stuff that might come from this AI thing here as well. But whereas with the NFTs and crypto and stuff, it didn't do anything. It was just a get in now because you might be a millionaire or something, and nobody really knows what it's for. I don't. That sort of stuff's. It's a solution looking for a problem, but with the AI stuff, it's like it's definitely overblown, it's definitely hyped, and yeah, there's opportunity for people to get scammed with silly stuff, but I think there's actually practical stuff here. It's actually useful.
So it's a classic hype cycle. We need to get through that peak of overinflated expectations, just get to that plateau.
Yeah.
Get to the trough of disillusionment.
The plateau of productivity.
Yeah.
But sorry, just on that, there's a lower barrier to entry, though, is there not? Crypto's hard, right? It's complicated. You are your own bank, right?
Yeah.
Depending on your opinion, but anyone can interact with a chatbot, and it's super easy to do that. So
Yeah,
there's also
which
that.
as we discussed, the idea of the next evolution in no code of truly empowering anybody to build things.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the chatbot as well. You just put a thing in there to solve a problem, and it gives you the answer, and then you go away with the solution. But with crypto, it's like, okay, great, I've bought some Bitcoin now.
What do I do with it?
What do I do with it? Yeah.
But I want to go back to this idea of inevitability as a motivating factor. Like, this thing is inevitable, therefore I'm going to pivot and get into this thing because it's inevitable. Like, you see where the lack of agency comes in? It's like, am I only doing this because it's coming down? I mean, I get it, that something's inevitable. It makes sense to change your behavior and change your life accordingly. But you know what's inevitable? Climate change is inevitable. And I don't see people, changing their careers and their lives for that, and that's 100% happening.
Right. Well,
So there is something of the, shiny toy here.
maybe there is, and only time's going to tell. I personally don't. I think there's a genie that's gone, that's escaped the bottle, been let out, depending on your point of view.
But maybe the genie isn't as powerful as
Maybe
some
the genie's
people
not as powerful yet, but the genie is getting more powerful as time and science, if you want to call it that, progresses.
Sure, I mean, but it's going to be a super powerful autocomplete.
Is it though? I mean, we're on a path to AGI at some point in the next 5 to 10 years, depending on whose opinion you
Depending on whose snake oil is being sold.
Well,
No, look, we're
I
never
guess
going to
we'll
get
see.
to the plateau of productivity if you're peddling that kind of shite.
I guess we'll find out in 5 or 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, it's not going to be. Okay, if artificial general intelligence does arise, it's not going to be from stochastic parrots.
No.
It's not going to be from Markov chain generators.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It might look like it, but yeah. I mean, it's kind of a Chinese room, right? It looks like a duck, talks like a duck, but it's autocomplete.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does the data come from?
It's a good question. We don't know the answer to that completely. Well, I know Midjourney's trained on a database called the Lion 5 database, which I think is many terabytes big.
And that all the permission has been given from all the creators who...
Nope, not all of them. And there's, earlier in the year, there was a class action brought by, I think, 3 artists. In particular, I think others might have added their names to it since, to copyright. But you can take yourself off of the training database So they say
You can opt out.
you can opt out. Yeah.
And what about in terms of the text being fed in? Who owns the input?
Yeah, it is a good question. Yeah, we don't really know. I think the official stance from OpenAI, anyways, it's just been trained on a collection of just public information from the internet, which is a mix of like medical journals and just like text on the internet as just readily available. But we don't really know exactly what it is.
Who owns the output?
There's been some legals in the States actually regards that. I'm talking to Midjourney here, so the visual side of things. I believe I'm right in saying I would need to fact check myself, but the output, the pixels, are not owned by the generator, the person that generated them, if you like.
But you didn't.
The person that prompted them.
Yeah.
The pixels are not owned by that person, but the prompt, I believe, can be owned. Yeah.
You might want to. I'm pretty sure when you signed a contract for DIBI, you said you had ownership of any materials used in your.
I own the prompts. Yeah. If not
Right,
pixels.
but the outputs.
They're out there in the world for anyone to use. They're open source. Now.
Mm.
I mean, is it?
You're a lawyer, right?
Nope. Far from it. But I've got ChatGPT to help me with any legal.
I mean, on that point, though, is there any difference between, if I'm designing something, I'll be looking through other materials that have been produced by other designers as inspiration, right? Like, so I might take a few of those ideas, take some color combination or something like that and create something. Is that not what the AI's?
Everything is a remix.
Yeah, everything's a remix. It's just AI's just remixing it really quickly.
Yeah. What is property anyway? So what I find interesting is, so in your case, it's kind of text in, text out. Text happens to be code. In your case, Matt, it's text in, images out.
Oftentimes, or video, or various other visual forms of creative, so to speak.
Right, but in both cases, the interface right now is chat. It's typing instructions in a certain level of clarity.
Text. Well, there's image to image generators, there's video to video generators. There's multimodals coming to
So
GPT
I'm curious
as
about
well.
what other interfaces. I mean, you with your Galaxy Brain hat on, what can you think of beyond just typing into a box and to really make it democratizing. Right now literacy is a barrier.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean. Yeah, because it's hard to visualize because it is just sort of text in, text out. But I've seen people talking about we could just ask for a movie and it just generates a full movie of a particular theme, or you could just generate any kind of scenes that you want. And there's a lot of people predicting that it might even change the way we consume content, visual content, and entertainment and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure what else there could be.
Well, I want to throw this open to the audience because I know there's lots of experts in the audience as well and got ideas. Yes, right here in the front, second row.
Thank you. Jeremy brought it up at the start of the panel discussion, the question around AI and is that the right word? I'm really interested in how we describe what we do with it. Especially, we talked a lot about user research yesterday. I think what's interesting about user research is no matter what method you use, there's always this element of the participant has ownership in the narrative. And so that could be an interview, a contextual inquiry. Maybe, Matt, sorry for putting you on the spot. when you then think of these images that were created of that persona that you showed earlier, which was sort of this white, quite skinny woman in reasonably expensive activewear. I think it's maybe not far-fetched to say that narrative is maybe not owned by the entirety of women who run. So I'm wondering, especially in regards to user research, if we were to use AI in that way, what do we call that?
That's a very good point. I think it's synthetic, and this isn't the exact term that could be applied to it, but there's a method called silicone sampling. So maybe sampling might be the right word, right? And silicone sampling basically says that you're spinning up an audience which is determined by your inputs. It's synthesized, it's based on the database to run surveys or focus groups, etc., and perform research in that manner. So yeah, maybe sampling is a better word for it. I don't know. Would that work for you?
I guess I'm just wondering, like, are you sampling the narrative, or like, are you sampling the input directly, or are you sampling it by proxy? Are the people really, like, are you really sampling from the source, or are you sampling what someone else says about that source, what they would say?
I think you're sampling by proxy, because you're sampling what the result of the training was for the model, which was trained on the internet, which was at some point a thought by or an action or a deed or something that was human based or engineered or input or whatever. So you are a few steps removed, and actually to your point about research, it's not there to find the right answers, it's there to find the wrong answers, is also true. So it's not an easy one to answer or deal with.
There was that great article by Ted Chiang that large language models is like a blurry JPEG of the web. It's actually kind of accurate because it involves compression, right? The GPT is like this compressed, zipped version of the entirety of the web. So the output is not going to be high def, it's going to be like a blurry JPEG. And I think, maybe what we were seeing there was like a blurry JPEG of a persona, rather compared to something that actually came from talking to people.
It was general and maybe generative. That generative word sort of fits into.
There is that feeling that it's almost a smudged effect you get from the outputs. I mean, you're talking about code, which is one very practical output of ChatGPT. But when people are using it for text, you can kind of start to recognize, in the same way that Midjourney has a look, the text has a kind of generalized, it washes over you, it doesn't stick in your head, it's got no hooks, you know?
I completely agree. When I've been using it as for a while, I can tell when my colleagues have started using it, like, you've used ChatGPT, because it uses very specific words, like the way that it uses like therefore or thereafter, and it's like my colleagues don't use those words. But I think on the subject of text, like that, when that generation of text, what I also find is like the ChatGPT can be very agreeable on what are the stuff that you do, and so if you are expecting it to like do the research for you or something like that, it's very agreeable. It's just like a human wants this text that it doesn't care if it's true or false.
Yeah, and on the subject of clarity here, let's not call that hallucinating or making mistakes.
Yeah,
it's lies.
Yeah, it's just lies. And the thing with these things are trained. They're trained with they've been learned with humans too. That's how it sort of works. So it's just like, did this give you the right answer that you were expecting? Yes, no, yes, no. But at the end of the day, the AI is still a shit word, but it's like it wants to please human. So it's just like, okay, like if you ask it something where you yourself don't know if it's the correct answer, you could be like, yeah, thumbs up, that looks about right, and then that's reinforcing that stuff. Yeah.
Kind of, I found it so shocking to see it employed for search engines. That seemed to be like, surely that's the last place we should be using this, where accuracy and trust are so important. Okay, we got a hand back there, and Glenn as well. Oh, who gets there first? Who's going to be first with the microphone?
Oh, Glenn.
It's Glenn. Glenn got the mic.
Hi there. Lots of questions, but I think there's one that fits this conference really well, which is you were both talking about how you would use this in your own practice, like how it help you code or help you with design work. As an audience, obviously, we're going to take this technology as it moves forward and deploy it into products. One of the things I found by using it quite a bit is that I end up having to talk to it in a way that's quite humanistic in a lot of ways. So it does lie. How do I know when it's lying? Well, I have to ask it questions. I try and find out. I try and refine the way that I talk to it. I ask it for context. I move it forward. I ask it sometimes to even verify its own self. And these are things that I would do with someone in a party if they were telling me about something and I didn't quite believe that they knew what they were talking about. This type of probabilistic interface, rather than having something that's deterministic, like the types of computer programs that we've used for years, where we press a button and it has a specific output, means that I think we're going to have to design completely different user experiences that revolve around dealing with things that are probabilistic and that come out and do give you partial answers. Most of the time that's going to be really useful to us, but how do you think we're going to design a new paradigm? Much like when we first got television and then they started doing TV programs as theatre, are we going to be able to do that jump as a group of people who build and design web sites?
Oof. Wow, there's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah, so like what, is this stage just like the skeuomorphic stage of it, where we're just taking what we already know from, design and development and applying it to this tool, but actually there's an untapped, entirely new way of approaching things.
I think it'd be interesting if we got a model that in some way was self-critical, or to Scott's point, was the antithesis of the one that wanted to please humans in its output. And there's been a lot of chat about agents, hasn't there? Glenn and I were talking about agents last night, recently, but agents are self-spawning, like a mothership bot that self-spawns other bots to complete a task. And were a big topic of conversation over the last month or so, but actually have turned out to be a bit of smoke and mirrors. But there was an element of that, and a thread of conversation that came out of it, which was it would be interesting and more useful if these agents kind of dipped in and out of their interface with humans to get to the end result. Is this what you're expecting to see?
Back as they
Basically, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question, Glenn, or not. But I mean, we were talking about it last night. But yeah, a bot that is capable in some way of self-criticism and its own kind of critical analysis, or if it's not sure about something, asking the human to step in and do that job as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like to question about like changing the paradigm, or is there a new paradigm? I don't have the answer for that. That's really interesting to think about. But I know from my experience with it is if you're writing something, my main use case for it is actually do the work, do the research to do the thing or whatever it is you want, and then you paste that in to just like, can you make this better? Can you change this in a bit better of a way? Can you those kind of things, and then you're not leaving it open for it to start making stuff up and start lying, because you've given it the input.
You've given it the constraints.
Yeah, you've given it the constraints and all that sort of stuff. But I have found, and I think that's been the most interesting thing about the whole agent conversation, is that feedback loop. If I ask ChatGPT to give me some code or a piece of text, and then feed it back into it and just say, is this accurate? Like, it'll be like, oh no, sorry, this fact actually isn't quite right. It could still be hallucinating all that stuff or lying about it or whatever. But like, there is an element of like, if it produces a piece of code which has got a security vulnerability, and you can just paste it back and just say, can you please just security evaluate this code? And it'll be like, oh yeah, no, actually I didn't put validation here, and it keeps self-evaluating, and that's what people have found really powerful with the agents, is that's what it's doing. It has a task, and then it evaluates like, did I do that task correctly? No, I didn't. Here's a change I'll make. Did I do that correctly? And that's what the agents are doing, and that's quite interesting. But
agile iterative AI.
Yeah.
Actually, just I know we've got another question here, but I wanted to clarify some more terminology, because you were using the term bot there. Just to be clear, so that's an abbreviation. It's short for bottom. And when we're talking about chatbots, of course, chat is the French for cat. So just anytime we're saying chatbot, just make sure the full expanded term is catbot. So we had another question there.
Thank you. Sorry, Matt, this is kind of you again, I think. It was more around from a design perspective. Certainly in agency life, you always kind of have, or you can regularly have a battle to sell the value of design, especially as UX becomes a big thing, especially in sort of smaller clients or startups, to sell the value of that service and the kind of what it'll return, and the kind of doing that as a full process. With the kind of open transparency and kind of media coverage of these kind of AI or machine learning kind of tools and processes, is there the fear that for people out with the creative industry, that it's actually going to massively devalue the creative process? Because actually, somebody estimating 80, 100, 120 grand, and they have 30 grand of that in for wireframing and kind of prototyping, you've done that in 5 minutes. So if people become aware of that, does it run the risk of devaluing that process for selling that on?
Yeah, I think the creative process in general has been devalued for a great many years, be it the design process or an advertising type of conceptual process as well. And we have to pitch for free repeatedly, and spend a lot of time and effort and money therefore doing that. I think it's a worry. I think it's a genuine concern, and I honestly don't know what the answer is to it, because this stuff is happening, and there's almost nothing that we can do about it.
Is there a sense that the design discipline has kind of been hoisted by its own petard by saying, okay, we need to learn to speak the language of business. So we've been doing that. We've been explaining design in terms of the value, the monetary value design brings to the bottom line.
As a return on investment.
As a return on investment. So then a technology comes along that's cheaper. Why wouldn't they use that? If you said the value was monetary and I can get it for cheaper, why wouldn't I?
I guess, and it's been we've struggled with this as well over recent weeks and months in terms of, if and I mentioned a case where we were on a call with a client this morning, and we were like, okay, fine, you haven't got 150 grand, maybe you've only got 90, do you know what I mean? And where can we trim and make economies? And the problem you get to is that you are, yes, devaluing your skill that's been learned over many years to a pretty great extent, for one thing. But then you're in this quandary of, am I selling this to the client cheaper? How do I frame that to the client, basically? Am I saying I'm getting there faster, more efficiently, more economically, so I can give you a discount, and I'm not spending all of that time? But the truth of the matter is that, while it's time that we sell, it's actually our expertise and our skill that we sell. So, if you were to ask for an idea for an advertising campaign, and it took me 30 seconds to dream up, and I give you a bill for that for 100 grand, someone's going to ask, well, you did that in 30 seconds. It's not 30 seconds, is it? It's 20, 30 years in the industry that's got you to that point. So I don't have an answer. It's a really hard one, and it's a massively vexed question, and sort of existential for our industry, I think, as it stands.
Is this kind of the logical extension of all the work that's been happening anyway in design systems? We've been focusing on efficiency, assembling our little components so that we can generate things. I mean, frankly, web development has been kind of like assembling Lego blocks for a while, and if that's what it feels like to use these tools, well, we kind of brought this on ourselves, right?
Yeah. One of the things I think about as well is, could this cause us to just freeze in time? So, we've trained AI we've collected data to a point and trained the models on that thing. Then, as future generations go, do we stop iterating these things, and that's it? So, future generations is just reusing the same frozen data set forever, and that never evolves anymore, and that's kind of a scary idea. Then maybe eventually there's generations out there that wouldn't even know the first thing about iterating on a design system or changing the way things work. And I'm not sure. I mean, obviously the idea would be just keep retraining the models and keep them all up to date, but what if we just stop contributing?
We might have time for one more question, if it's a quick one. Can we get a microphone up here? There we go, perfect.
Okay, so I also have design-related, more to research-related question. But I'm just wondering, because when we're thinking about the research, we have these two approaches. So one of them is like the miner, so we need to dig into the data we have to find some insights. And then we have the second approach, when we need to discover, so like explorer, we are looking for something new. It's not easy to find, for example, a new need that people don't even know that they have this problem or this need. And I'm just wondering what you are thinking about this risk that by using all these tools, it can help with the first approach because it's all based on the data we have right now. But if we'll go with this way, that we'll be using this AI to do the research, we are losing the second part. So we are always relating on the data we have, and we are not looking for discovering something new.
Yeah, well, I suppose the simple answer to that is you might want to use it for the first part, but you definitely don't want to use it for the second part. Yeah. Because by using it for the first part, you probably freed up a bunch of time to go away and have a walk in the woods and come up with an idea for an iPhone, or the the next big thing or whatever it is in your field. If it's a good or a big idea, you've now got more space to dream that up, I suppose. I don't think I'm asking the machine to come up with big ideas for me. If I understood the question correctly, yeah.
All right, that's all we got time for. Let's give it up again one more time for Matt and Scott. Thank you.
Cheers.